The void between stars held no sound, no warmth, only the endless dark and the occasional glimmer of distant suns. The US watchtower drifted in perfect silence, its matte, black hull drinking in the faint starlight. Adaptive camouflage rippled across its surface, bending radiation and scattering sensors. To any passing ship, it was just another shadow in the cosmic background. Captain Elias Vance leaned back in his command chair, fingers steepled under his chin. The holographic display before him showed 3 jagged shapes emerging from a subspace rift, their outlines pulsing with eerie bioluminescence. Vorac ships, organic asymmetrical, their hulls lined with vein, like structures that throbbed with energy. Right on schedule, Vance murmured. Lieutenant Mara Chen glanced up from her console, her dark eyes sharp. Scout Fleet designation Silent Claw, 3 vessels, standard Vorac recon pattern. They're scanning the outer system. Vance didn't smile, he didn't need to. The Vorac thought they were hunters. They had no idea they'd just swum into a net. Patch me into their comms, he ordered. A moment later, the bridge speakers crackled with guttural Vorac speech, translated in real time by the ship's AI. Scans confirm minimal orbital defenses, primitive energy signatures, proceeding to inner system for closer observation. Vance exhaled slowly. The arrogance, the certainty. The Vorac had spent centuries preying on weaker species, carving out their empire with claws and teeth. They'd never encountered a species that fought back smarter. "Sir," Chen said, her voice tight with anticipation. "They're moving toward the Mars perimeter." Vance tapped a command into his console. A new hologram flickered to life, a tactical overlay of the Sol system. Dozens of tiny icons blinked into existence, scattered like hidden knives in the dark. Human ships, stealth fighters, orbital platforms, all silent, all waiting. "Send the signal," Vance said. "Let's see how long they last." Aboard the lead Vorac scout ship, Hollow Fang, Scout Leader Krell flexed his serrated claws. His 4 eyes scanned the data feeds with predatory satisfaction. The humans had barely expanded beyond their homeworld. No standing fleet, no planetary shields, just a few scattered outposts clinging to barren rocks. "Pathetic," he hissed to his second. "In command, the Federation warned us they were fragile. I didn't realize they were this weak." His subordinate chittered in agreement. "Shall we mark the system for harvest? The brood, mothers will feast well on this world." Krell was about to respond when the ship lurched violently. Alarms shrieked through the organic corridors, the walls trembling as if in pain. "Report," he snarled. "Power failure, all systems." The technician's voice cut off as the lights died. The bioluminescent veins running through the ship's hull flickered, dimmed, then went dark. Krell's blood ran cold. Vorac ships didn't fail. Their technology was grown, not built, living, adapting. This wasn't a malfunction. This was an attack. Back on the watchtower, Vance watched as the Vorac ships floundered. Their organic systems were vulnerable in ways they didn't understand. Human MP pulses tuned to disrupt bio. Electric signals had turned their vessels into drifting carcasses. "Stealth fighters, decloak," Vance ordered. Space rippled as dozens of sleek human fighters shimmered into visibility, their railguns humming with charged energy. The Vorac ships were sitting ducks, Chen grinned. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Krell's voice burst over the comms, panicked, furious. "This is a trap. They knew we were coming. They wanted us here." Vance leaned forward, his voice calm. Vorac Scout Fleet Silent Claw. "This is Captain Elias Vance of the United Earth Stellar Navy. You are in violation of sovereign human space. Power down your vessels and prepare to be boarded." Silence, then a burst of static. Krell's reply was a snarl. "You dare," Vance cut the transmission. "Lieutenant, disable their engines." Chen's fingers danced across her console. "With pleasure, sir." The railguns fired. In the Vorac High Council chamber, floating above the gas giant Voraxis, the holographic display flickered with the last moments of the Silent Claw fleet. The images were fragmented, chaotic, human ships appearing from nowhere, Vorac vessels crippled in seconds. High Chieftain Zorath slammed a clawed fist onto the obsidian table. Impossible. Our scouts are the finest hunters in the galaxy. Ambassador Lyra of the Zeperian Confederacy watched silently. Her crystalline skin reflected the green bioluminescence of the chamber, her expression unreadable. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. You mistake patience for weakness. Zorath rounded on her. You knew of this. You warned them. Lyra didn't flinch. I warned you. The humans have been tracking your movements for decades. They let you find them. The chamber fell silent on the hologram. The last Vorac ship exploded in a flash of light. Zorath's voice was a whisper. What have we awakened? The Vorac scout ships drifted through the outer Sol system, their organic sensor arrays pulsing as they drank in data. Scout leader Krell flexed his clawed hands against the command console of the Hollow Fang, his chitinous plates vibrating with anticipation. Focus scans on the third planet, he hissed to his crew. That is where the weak ones cluster. His second, in command, a younger Vorac named Tesk, manipulated the bio-interface with practiced ease. Strange, Tesk muttered. Their orbital signatures show primitive nuclear propulsion, no energy shields detected. But his mandibles twitched in confusion. There are anomalous readings in the asteroid belt. Krell snorted, a wet sound through his respiratory vents. Debris from their pathetic wars, no doubt. The Zeperian intelligence was correct. This is a backward species. He turned to the ship's fleshy comms node. Signal the fleet. Prepare first contact protocols for a Class Phi subjugation scenario. The Hollow Fang shuddered suddenly. Krell's crest flared in alarm as the bioluminescent panels along the walls flickered. Report. Tesk scrambled at his console, the organic keys squelching under his claws. Power fluctuations across all systems, some kind of energy pulse. The ship lurched violently, throwing several crew members against the spongy bulkheads. The main viewer went dark. On the USN watchtower, Lieutenant Mara Chen watched the Vorac vessels flounder with grim satisfaction. EMP saturation complete. Captain, all 3 targets are blind and drifting. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface. Stealth fighters report weapons hot and in position. Captain Elias Vance leaned forward in his command chair, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The 3 Vorac ships floated helplessly, their organic tech systems paralyzed by the precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses. Good hunting, Lieutenant. But remember, we need one of them functional enough to send a message. Chen nodded. Aye, sir. Railgun batteries charging. Pattern Delta Phi. She opened fleet-wide channel. All iron spear elements. This is Watchtower Actual. Execute interdiction protocol. I repeat. Execute interdiction protocol. Space rippled as 48 human stealth fighters deactivated their camouflage systems simultaneously. The sleek, angular ships appeared as if from nowhere, forming a perfect sphere around the paralyzed Vorac vessels. Their railgun emitters glowed blue as magnetic coils charged. Aboard the Hollow Fang, Krell roared in fury as emergency lighting finally flickered to life. Get me engines, get me weapons. He smashed a fist against the shuddering view screen just as it reactivated and froze. The screen showed human fighters surrounding his ship from every angle. Not the crude chemical rockets Vorac intelligence had described, but advanced warships with weapons trained directly at his vessel. Krell's crest flattened against his skull in the Vorac equivalent of stunned terror. Scout leader, Tess cried. Incoming transmission. The main viewer shifted to show a human female with close-cropped black hair and cold brown eyes. Vorac vessel Hollow Fang, Lieutenant Chen said, her voice calm but edged with steel. This is the United Earth Stellar Navy. Power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. Krell's claws dug into his command console, leaking greenish fluid. You dare threaten a Vorac scout fleet. We are the vanguard of the swarm. When our main forces arrive, Chen cut him off with a humorless smile. Oh, we're counting on that. She glanced at something off. Screen. Watchtower confirms your distress beacon is transmitting nicely. Though her smile turned predatory. I'd worry less about your main fleet and more about your current situation. Krell's translator barely had time to process her words before the Watchtower's railguns fired. Not at his ship, but at his 2 escorts. The hypervelocity rounds punched through the organic hulls of the other Vorac vessels, like tissue paper. Atmosphere and crew vented into space in frozen clouds. You monsters, Krell screamed as he watched his comrades die. We came in peace. Chen's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. With your weapons charged and invasion protocols loaded, don't insult us both. She leaned closer to the screen. Here is what is going to happen. You're going to stay right where you are while we download your navigation data and comm logs. Then we're going to let you limp home with 1 engine and a story to tell. Tess whimpered as new alerts flashed across the bio-interface. They're hacking our systems. Our entire mission archive is being copied. Krell felt true fear for the first time in his predatory life. These weren't the frightened, primitive apes the Zephyrians had described. These were something else, something dangerous. He activated the comm with trembling claws. What are you? Chen's expression didn't change. The neighbors you should have brought a gift basket for. She turned to someone off. Screen. Captain, we have full data extraction, awaiting your orders. Captain Vance's voice came through crisp and clear. Send our guests home, and Lieutenant, make sure they remember the way. The last thing Krell saw before his ship was violently boarded was Chen's smirk. Welcome to the neighborhood, boys. Try not to get lost on your way back. The transmission cut out as armored human marines breached the Holofang's organic airlocks with terrifying efficiency. Tesk turned to Krell, his eye stalks quivering. Scout leader, what do we do? Krell watched through the view screen as human soldiers in powered armor ripped through his crew with methodical precision. His final transmission to the Vorac High Council contained only 7 words before the comms were severed. They knew we were coming. They wanted us here. The Vorac High Council chamber pulsed with eerie green light, the bioluminescent veins in the walls throbbing in time, with the arguments raging across the circular platform. High Chieftain Zorath loomed over the holographic display, his 4 clawed hands gripping the edges as the last transmission from Scout Leader Krell played for the 3rd time. The scout's panicked voice crackled through the chamber. They knew we were coming. They wanted us here. Ambassador Lyra of the Zephyrian Confederacy stood apart from the Vorac warlords, her smooth silver skin reflecting the sickly glow. She watched the reactions carefully, the twitching mandibles, the agitated clicking of armored limbs. The Vorac weren't afraid. They were angry. Impossible, growled War Leader Drox, slamming a fist against his chestplate. The soft skins couldn't have detected our cloaked scouts. This was a malfunction, a coincidence. Zorath's crest flared crimson, the bony protrusion along his skull signaling his rising temper. The humans got lucky. Their primitive sensors stumbled upon our vessels by chance. He turned to the gathered warlords, his voice dripping with contempt. We've seen their records. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They still use projectile weapons. Lyra cleared her throat, the sound like wind chimes in the tense silence. With respect, High Chieftain, my people have studied human military tactics extensively. Your people cower behind treaties and diplomacy, Zorath snapped, cutting her off. The Zephyrians have grown soft trading with these mammals. We Vorac understand true strength. He gestured to the hologram, now frozen on the image of human stealth fighters emerging from the void. This proves nothing except that prey animals know how to hide. Lyra's pupil, less eyes narrowed. You're making a dangerous assumption. The humans didn't just detect your scouts. They anticipated them. That implies, enough. Zorath's roar echoed through the chamber. We will not be lectured by a species that negotiates with food. He turned to his warlords, his crest now blazing scarlet. Prepare the invasion fleet. If these humans think they can embarrass the Vorac Dominion, we will show them the price of arrogance. A murmur of approval rippled through the gathered warriors. Lyra watched as tactical displays lit up, showing Vorac battlecruisers mobilizing from their orbital docks, hundreds of ships, each capable of glassing a planet. "You're committing a grave error," Lyra said quietly. "The humans have had interstellar capability for barely a century, yet they've expanded faster than any species in recorded history. Doesn't that concern you?" War-Leader Drox snorted, a wet sound from his respiratory vents. "They spread like vermin. That just means more targets." Lyra stepped closer to the hologram, manipulating the controls with delicate fingers. The image shifted to show the last moments of the scout fleet again. But this time, she highlighted something new. "Notice the timing. The humans didn't just ambush your ships. They waited until the scouts had completed full scans of their system. They wanted you to see Earth's location." Zorath hesitated, his crest dimming slightly. "What are you implying?" "I'm saying this wasn't a defensive action." Lyra zoomed in on one of the human stealth fighters. These vessels weren't on patrol. They were lying in wait. The humans knew you'd come eventually, and they prepared for it. She looked up, meeting Zorath's gaze. "You mistake patience for weakness." The chamber fell silent. Even the warlord seemed unsettled now. Zorath studied the hologram, his claws flexing. "No, this is impossible. The humans lack the intelligence network to predict our movements. They're barely spacefaring." Lyra sighed. "My government warned yours not to probe human territory. We have operatives in their colonies. Their technological progression doesn't follow normal patterns. They leapfrog generations of development in decades, and their military doctrine," she trailed off, shaking her head. "They don't fight like any species we've encountered." Zorath turned away, his crest flickering between red and orange. "It doesn't matter. Our fleet will crush whatever defenses they've cobbled together. We'll burn their worlds and salt the ashes." He gestured to his subordinates. "Dispatch the Silent Moor battle group. I want their homeworld in flames within the cycle." As the warlords hurried to obey, Lyra remained still. She watched Zorath stride toward the exit, his armored form casting long shadows. "High Chieftain," she called after him, "consider this. If the humans were capable of this ambush, what else have they prepared?" Zorath didn't turn around. "Let them try. The Vorac have conquered 1,000 species. These primates will be no different." Lyra looked back at the hologram, now displaying the planned invasion routes. The Vorac fleet would strike deep into human territory, targeting their core worlds. It was a textbook assault, the same strategy that had broken 100 civilizations. But as she studied the star maps, something nagged at her. The humans had let the scouts see Earth's defenses, or rather, what they wanted the Vorac to see. The pieces didn't fit. No species would reveal their homeworld's location, unless her breath caught. Unless they were confident, a junior analyst approached, his antennae twitching nervously. "Ambassador, the High Command requests your immediate return. They're concerned about the situation." Lyra nodded absently, still staring at the hologram. "Tell them to prepare contingency plans and to monitor all human communications channels." The analyst hesitated. "You think the humans will surrender?" Lyra's voice was barely above a whisper. "I think we're about to discover why humanity has never lost a war." She turned away from the display, her silver robes shimmering. "And I fear the Vorac have just signed their own extinction notice." As she left the chamber, the hologram flickered one last time, freezing on the image of a single human stealth fighter, its weapons locked, its pilot unseen behind the darkened canopy. Waiting, always waiting. The void above Vorac Prime shimmered as space itself tore open. One by one, the human warships emerged from warp, their angular hulls blotting out the stars. Admiral Rachel Holt stood on the bridge of the UAZN Retribution, her hands clasped behind her back as the blue-green world filled the view screen. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Captain Vance said from the tactical station. His fingers danced across holographic controls. "Iron Spear fleet is locked and loaded." Holt didn't smile. She didn't need to. The Vorac homeworld's orbital defenses were already lighting up, their organic-looking battle stations unfolding like grotesque flowers. Too late. Far too late. "Open fleet-wide channel," Holt ordered. The comm officer nodded, and the Admiral's voice carried across 200 warships. "This is Admiral Holt. Today, the Vorac learn why humanity doesn't hide. Today, they learn what happens when you hunt a species that hunts back." On the surface below, alarms would be blaring. The Vorac High Council would be scrambling, their warlords bellowing orders. Holt imagined their chitinous faces twisting in disbelief as they saw the human armada hanging over their world like the sword of some ancient god. "Kinetic batteries armed," Vance reported across the fleet. Massive railgun arrays hummed to life, their magnetic coils glowing faintly blue. Fire. Space lit up as hundreds of tungsten rods launched simultaneously. Each one was the size of a skyscraper, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They streaked through the upper atmosphere, their friction turning the sky into a hellish orange canvas. The first impacts hit Vorac Prime's planetary shields. The energy barriers flared brilliant purple before collapsing like glass under a hammer. Secondary strikes slammed into military installations, reducing entire cities to smoldering craters in milliseconds. "Direct hits on all primary targets," Vance said, his voice calm despite the devastation unfolding below. "Their orbital defenses are attempting to return fire." Holt watched as glowing green projectiles, some kind of bioplasma, arced up from the surface. The human point, defense lasers, swatted them aside effortlessly. "Admiral," came a new voice over the comm. Lieutenant Chen's face appeared on a side screen, her fighter squadron weaving through the chaos. "We're picking up massive energy readings from their southern continent. Looks like they're trying to rally their fleet." Holt tapped a command into her console. The Retribution's main display zoomed in, revealing dozens of Vorac bioships erupting from hidden underground hangars. They moved like living things, their spined hulls pulsing with sickly light. "Captain Vance," Holt said, never taking her eyes off the screen. "You have permission to engage the Retribution's primary weapon." Vance's grin was all teeth. "With pleasure, Admiral." Deep within the Retribution's armored belly, capacitors whined as they charged. The ship's spine, like dorsal array, unfolded, revealing a weapon the Vorac had no name for. "Gravitic lance at 90%, Vance called out. "Fire at will." The beam lanced out, invisible until it struck the lead Vorac battleship. Space itself seemed to twist around the target before the bioship imploded violently, its organic armor offering no resistance to the artificial singularity tearing it apart. The remaining Vorac vessels scattered in panic. "All squadrons," Holt ordered. "Clean up the stragglers, leave one ship alive to carry our message." The human fighters descended like wolves, their railguns shredding the fleeing bioships with surgical precision. Only a single scout vessel managed to escape, its hull leaking ichor as it limped toward the system's edge. On the Retribution's bridge, Holt finally allowed herself a small, cold smile. "Open a channel to the surface. All frequencies." The comm officer worked quickly. "You're live, Admiral." Holt straightened her uniform. "High Chieftain Zorath. This is Admiral Rachel Holt of the United Earth Space Navy. You sent scouts to find Earth. We brought our entire fleet to your doorstep. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or the next volley will reduce your capital to molten slag." She cut the transmission without waiting for a reply. The bridge was silent except for the steady beep of targeting systems. Vance finally broke the quiet. "Think they'll listen?" Holt watched the burning cities below. "No, but that is not why we're here." The tactical display updated, showing fresh energy spikes across the planet. The Vorac were rallying, calling in every warship from nearby systems. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, "we're detecting multiple subspace ruptures at the system's edge. It is their entire home fleet." Holt didn't blink. "Good, let them come." The view screen flickered as hundreds more Vorac bioships warped in, their formations blotting out the stars. They outnumbered the human fleet 3-1. Captain Vance cracked his knuckles. Looks like they want to play after all. Holt activated the fleet-wide comm again. All ships, battle stations. Today, we teach the galaxy why you don't wake a sleeping giant. The human armada turned as one to face the oncoming swarm, their weapons glowing hot. The Vorac had made their choice. Now they would learn the price of arrogance. The crystalline walls of the Zeperian intelligence hub shimmered with reflected starlight as Ambassador Lyra stared at the holographic display. The Vorac homeworld burned in real time, its once proud orbital defenses crumbling under the relentless assault of human warships. Around her, the normally composed Zeperian analysts had abandoned their usual calm, their bioluminescent skin flickering with distress patterns. "They're targeting the shield generators first," murmured Senior Analyst Vex, his four-fingered hands trembling over the console. Precision strikes. No wasted shots. Lyra's mandibles clicked in disbelief. The humans had appeared without warning, their fleet emerging from warp directly above the Vorac capital. No grand declaration, no demands. Just sudden, overwhelming violence. A junior analyst gasped as the hologram zoomed in on a human dreadnought, the USN Retribution. Its massive kinetic cannons glowed white, hot before unleashing another volley. The projectiles streaked through the atmosphere like falling stars, each impact sending shockwaves visible from orbit. "By the first hive," Vex whispered. "They're not just bombarding them, they're dismantling their defenses piece by piece." Lyra's communicator chimed. The High Command's emblem pulsed urgently. She activated the channel, bracing herself. "Confirm what we're seeing," snapped General Crix, his voice strained. "Is this real?" Lyra watched as another Vorac battle group attempted to intercept the human fleet. The human ships moved with terrifying coordination, flanking maneuvers executed with machine. Like precision, railgun fire tore through Vorac hulls as if their organic armor were paper. "It is real," Lyra said quietly. "The humans have been tracking Vorac movements for decades. This wasn't defense, it was a trap." Silence stretched across the comm. Then Crix uttered a single word no Zeperian had ever used to describe another species. On the main display, a new data stream appeared, decrypted human communications intercepted during the battle. Lyra's breath caught as she read the transcripts. Target acquired, weapons free. Remember Ceres? No mercy. They wanted Earth. Give them hell instead. A young analyst, barely out of training, turned to Lyra with wide eyes. "Ambassador, these timestamps. The humans detected the Vorac scout fleet weeks before it entered their system. They let them find Earth." Lyra's carapace tingled with cold realization. The humans hadn't been hiding, they'd been hunting. The hologram flickered as a new feed activated. A live transmission from the Vorac High Council's bunker. Chieftain Zoroth's once proud crest lay flattened against his skull, his voice ragged. "Zeperian allies, we beg for intervention. The humans. They knew everything. Our fleet positions, our shield frequencies." The transmission cut off abruptly as another kinetic strike shook the bunker complex. The hologram dissolved into static. Vex exhaled sharply. They're not just defeating them, they're making an example. Lyra turned to the communications array. Her fingers hesitated over the controls. What could she even say to her superiors? That the entire Federation had misjudged humanity, that the so-called soft-skinned primitives had outmaneuvered the galaxy's most feared warriors. She opened a secure channel to High Command. The words tasted bitter. "We were wrong. So wrong." Around her, the analysts had stopped working entirely, their attention locked on the destruction unfolding light, years away. One of them, a veteran of 3 interstellar conflicts, spoke in a hushed tone no Zeperian had ever used in reference to battle. "This isn't war. It is extermination." Lyra watched as the human fleet regrouped, their formation shifting like a living organism. Admiral Holt's flagship moved to the forefront, its prow glowing with accumulated heat from continuous firing. A new transmission cut through the interference. Human comms, unencrypted, as if they wanted the entire galaxy to hear. "Vorac High Command. This is Admiral Rachel Holt of the United Earth Stellar Navy. You have 30 minutes to surrender unconditionally. Clock starts now. The voice carried no anger, no hatred, just cold, terrifying certainty. Vex's console pinged. He stared at the readout, his antennae drooping. They've just deployed something new, orbital platforms moving into position. The hologram zoomed out, revealing a ring of human constructs taking position around the planet. Lyra's translator struggled with the human designation. Rods from God. A senior tactical officer inhaled sharply. Kinetic bombardment satellites, they're going to glass the planet. Lyra finished. She shook her head. No, look at the targeting data. They're avoiding population centers, striking only military installations. The realization hit her like a plasma bolt. The humans weren't just stronger. They were precise, ruthless, but not indiscriminate. They could have wiped the Vorac out entirely. Instead, they were sending a message to the Vorac, to the Zephyrians, to every species watching. A junior analyst, her voice barely audible, put words to the thought chilling every Zephyrian in the room. They weren't hiding. They were waiting. Lyra stared at the hologram, at the human fleet moving with lethal grace. For the first time in her diplomatic career, she felt true fear. Not of humanity's weapons, but of their patience. The galaxy had laughed at them, called them fragile, weak. Now the laughter had died in a storm of fire and steel. The throne room stank of burning flesh and molten metal. High Chieftain Zorath's claws scraped against the cracked obsidian floor as he dragged himself upright. His once gleaming carapace was blackened from plasma burns, his left mandible hanging by a thread of sinew. Around him, the last defenders of the Vorac capital lay in pieces, their biotech armor useless against human kinetics. Admiral Rachel Holt stepped through the smoke, her boots crunching on shattered Vorac bones. Behind her, a squad of human marines fanned out, their rifles humming with charged capacitors. The red targeting dots dancing across Zorath's thorax were the only lights left in the ruined chamber. You, Zorath hissed, his vocal sacs ruptured from the bombardment. You animals. Holt didn't blink. She tapped her wrist display, and the hologram of Earth bloomed between them. Untouched, pristine, funny. That is what your scout leader called us before we turned his ship into scrap. Zorath's remaining antennae twitched. The data feeds from the last hours played in his mind, human warships appearing from nowhere, their weapons tearing through Vorac fleets like paper. Their stealth tech had been a lie, a decoy. You lured us, Zorath rasped. Let us find your world, so you could trace our path home. Holt's smile was colder than the void. Took you long enough to figure that out. A tremor rocked the citadel as another human kinetic strike hit the outer defenses. Somewhere below, the last Vorac stronghold was crumbling. Zorath's claws dug into the floor. We have colonies, thousands of ships. You can't. We already did, Holt interrupted. She flicked her fingers, and the hologram shifted to show a star map. Dozens of Vorac systems flashed red, then winked out one by one. Your forward bases are gone, your shipyards, scorched. That scout fleet you sent to Earth, we let them report back exactly what we wanted. Zorath's body went rigid. The trap had been set years ago. Decades, maybe. Humans playing the long game while the Vorac laughed at their primitive stealth tech. A Marine lieutenant stepped forward, his visor retracting to reveal scarred features. Admiral orbital bombardments cleared the last ANSs, fleets standing by for your order. Holt held up a hand, her eyes never leaving Zorath. You came for Earth, she said softly. We came for you. The Vorac chieftain shuddered. This wasn't war. This was extermination. You don't want our territory. Zorath realized, you're not even taking prisoners. Holt tilted her head. Would you have? Silence. Zorath's mandibles clicked weakly. The humans hadn't just beaten them. They'd studied them, learned their tactics, their arrogance. Let the Vorac believe they were the hunters right up until the jaws snapped shut. A console on Holt's wrist beeped. She glanced at it, then nodded to her marines. Stand down. Federation delegations inbound. Zorath's antennae jerked up. The Federation. Turns out watching your homeworld get glassed tends to make people rethink their alliances. Holt tapped her earpiece. Ambassador Lyra, you're cleared to approach. Try not to step on the corpses. The Zephyrian's voice crackled through the comms, tight with barely contained shock. Admiral, by the stars, what have you done? Holt looked at Zorath, at the ruins of his empire, and smiled. Sent a message. The Vorac chieftain collapsed. His carapace cracked against the floor as the weight of his mistake crushed him harder than any human weapon. They'd thought humanity weak, fragile. Now his species would burn for that arrogance. Lyra's shuttle descended through the smoke-choked sky, its Zephyrian markings gleaming in the firelight. Zorath watched it come, his body failing. You mistake patience for weakness, he whispered, echoing Lyra's own warning. Holt turned to leave, her marines falling in behind her. Tell the galaxy that, she said over her shoulder. If any of you are left when we're done. Outside, the first Federation ships began landing in the ruins. The Vorac were finished. And humanity was just getting started. The great crystalline dome of the Galactic Federation Assembly Hall shimmered with refracted starlight, its ancient walls vibrating with the murmurs of 100 species. Ambassador Lyra adjusted her ceremonial robes, her delicate Zephyrian fingers tracing the new emblem stitched into the fabric, a human sigil, now displayed beside the Federation's crest. The hall's adaptive seating had been reconfigured overnight. The central dais expanded to accommodate the new arrivals. Admiral Rachel Holt strode through the arched entrance, flanked by human diplomats in crisp black uniforms. The murmurs died instantly. Every eye in the chamber followed her as she took her seat at the high table, the polished obsidian surface reflecting the cold gleam of her rank insignia. Lyra caught the way the Vorac delegation shrank back, their once proud chitin still bearing the scorch marks of human kinetics. Ambassador. Holt nodded to Lyra as she sat. Her voice carried no malice, only the quiet certainty of someone who had rewritten galactic history in a single week. Lyra inclined her head. Admiral, your delegation is unexpected. A ripple passed through the assembly. The human seat had been empty for decades, their observers content to linger in the shadows. Now they occupied it with the casual dominance of a species that had shattered the Federation's power calculus overnight. Holt's lips quirked. We thought it was time to introduce ourselves properly. High Prelate Zan of the Ceralian Conclave floated forward, his bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with agitation. This assembly does not recognize unilateral military action against aggressors. Holt interrupted. She tapped her data slate, and the dome's projection systems flared to life. The Vorac homeworld appeared, its once mighty orbital defenses now drifting debris. The silent claw fleet entered Sol space uninvited. Their high chieftain admitted they sought to claim Earth as a tributary world. She leaned forward. We merely returned the favor. Zan's tendrils darkened. You glassed 3 of their industrial hubs. Correction. Holt's smile didn't reach her eyes. We surgically dismantled 3 hubs. If we'd glassed them, Ambassador Lyra would be negotiating with a new species right now. A stunned silence followed. Lyra watched the realization dawn across the assembly. The humans hadn't just won. They'd held back. The Tarkesh emissary, a hulking reptilian with scarred plating, rose from his seat. You expect us to believe you've hidden this strength for centuries? Holt shrugged. We didn't hide. You just never asked the right questions. She gestured to the projection, which now displayed the USN Retribution hovering over Vorac Prime. When the silent claw crossed into Sol, they triggered automated beacons older than this Federation. We've been tracking every FTL ripple in our neighborhood since the first Zephyrian probe stumbled into Alpha Centauri. Lyra's breath caught. The implications unfolded like a supernova. Humanity hadn't been ignorant of galactic politics. They'd been studying them. The assembly dissolved into chaos. Species who had mocked human primitiveness now whispered in panicked clusters. The Vorac delegation sat motionless, their leaders' mandibles clicking in a distress rhythm. Only the humans remained still, their expressions unreadable. Lyra stepped onto the speaker's platform. The hall quieted reluctantly. The Superior Directorate moves to recognize Earth's delegation as full voting members. She hesitated, then added, with seniority backdated to first contact. The gasps were louder this time. Seniority determined everything: resource claims, trade routes, colonial rights. Backdating, it meant acknowledging humanity had always belonged at this table. Holt arched an eyebrow. Generous. Lyra met her gaze. Realistic. She raised her ceremonial drink bulb, the bioluminescent liquid casting blue shadows across her face, to the hunters who let themselves be found. One by one, the other ambassadors followed suit, even the Vorac, their movements stiff with humiliation. Holt waited until the last bulb was raised before lifting her own. The liquid inside was dark, swirling with tiny metallic flecks. Human whiskey, she explained at their curious looks. Distilled from grains grown in soil fertilized by Vorac wreckage. The Vorac emissary choked. Holt took a sip, then set the glass down with deliberate precision. Next time, knock first. As the assembly erupted into fresh debate, Lyra noticed the human diplomats weren't celebrating. They were observing, recording every reaction, every alliance fracture. The message was clear. This wasn't victory, this was a warning. In the shadows of the gallery, a young human aide tapped at a concealed device. The words scrolled across his screen, Phase 1 complete. Standing by for Phase 2 initiation. Outside the dome, unseen against the starfield, 100 human warships powered down their stealth systems. The galaxy would learn the truth soon enough. Sol hadn't sent its best to the Federation. It had sent its diplomats.